Okay, aloha everybody. So we're gonna start our workshop with Uncle Rick bonus. So today's workshop is looking for the ocean in your school, and Dr. Rick Bonus will be sharing about his journey in writing his book. So before we move on, I'm gonna establish some community agreements. So community agreements: first, take care of yourself. Know when, if you need to step out, you can step out. It's totally fine. Second is use I statements only. So try to share about your experiences, things that you have seen personally, and try not to speak for somebody else or for another group of people. Third community agreement is confidentiality. So in these workshops, we want to ask folks to keep stories private if someone shares something personal, but to keep the lesson and share it out. The fourth community agreement is impact over intent, and to really think about how what we share will impact others rather than our intent, because sometimes things can be interpreted in many different ways. The fifth community agreement is to vocalize your feelings. So if you want to support somebody, go ahead and snap, do the clapping action in the chat, or you can let somebody know, like, hey, what you said kind of affected me negatively. You can say ouch or oops, I'm really sorry for saying that. The next community agreements are, the sixth is to step up and step back. So when we share out, think about why you might be stepping up a little too much and taking up a lot of space, or think about why you need to step up a little more and why you might need to take up more space, because we want to make this dialogue really inclusive. The seventh community agreement is to know that silence is okay. So even if your chat rooms, or even if there's a little silence, that's okay. And if you don't want to share, that's also okay. Eighth is to leave space for growth, and just be mindful that everyone has different points in their learning, are at different levels in their learning experiences. And the ninth is to not put down other people, so don't yuck my yum. And 10th is open for the community to add if they want to, and please, if you want to, add it into the chat. So before we move on, we're gonna talk about Dr. Rick Bonus and how he is primarily an associate professor of American Ethnic Studies, but also has strong interest in the conjunctions among ethnic studies like American Ethnic Studies, Pacific Islander Studies, and Southeast Asian Studies, and how they deal with the historical phenomenon of migration, transnationalism, interdisciplinary work, and multicultural pedagogy. In his first book, Locating Filipino Americans, Ethnicity and the Cultural Politics of Space, it is a study about transnational Filipino experiences in the U.S. within the context of U.S. imperial history. And he also co-edited the anthology Intersections and Divergences, Contemporary Asian American Communities, which is a collection of essays that deal with heterogeneities, complexities, and contradictions of radicalized group formations. He's written many essays on cultural politics of difference, media representation, and multicultural education. Dr. Rick also teaches courses pertaining to U.S. multiracial society, Filipino American history and culture, ethnographies of Southeast Asia and Southeast Asian America, and education in relationship to race. His forthcoming book is based on an ethnography of underrepresented students whose college experience become generative sites for critiquing and transforming mentorship programs. and transforming university schooling. He's been involved in the creation and sustenance of several UW mentorship programs that specifically target the retention and eventual graduation of students who identify as or are allies with Pacific Islanders, Chicanos, Latinos, Native Americans, African Americans, and the African diasporic people. He works on advocacy for underrepresented faculty, curriculum transformation, and nurturing the community links with many groups. He's formerly the president of the Association for Asian American Studies. So knowing all that, this is
Thank
Dr.
you.
Rick Bowden.
Thank you, thank you. That was super long, sorry. So thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you for joining us. And so to get on with our presentation, I'm just gonna ask a couple questions that'll kind of help lead the dialogue. My first question is, how did you begin with this book, or what is the origins of the book you wrote?
All right, of course, yeah. The book originated a long time ago, actually. The ideas for the book, or even just the ideas in general that I talk about in the book, came up to me when I was hired at the University of Washington. On my second week of being a new professor at UW many years ago, two Pacific Islanders actually went to my office and gave me a hug, gave me a welcome. And I was so moved because, you know, and these are, I think I talk about this in the book as well. And these are two students who were like engaged in some kind of, we can call it protesting at the University of Washington, primarily because of their Pacific Islander status, which means that they were largely invisible. They were very underrepresented on campus, and they wanted to do something about it. And so, and that sort of planted a seed in my head about, you know, we should tell their stories, right? And so a couple of things that actually stand out in terms of starting the book and sort of generating possible themes for the book, there were three things that actually came up. So one of them is this whole idea of diversity, which has in vogue ever since, you know, I started working in the 2000s as a university professor, which is this idea that we tend, you know, most universities, and this is not just UW, so most universities and colleges tend to recruit a lot of people, a lot of underrepresented minority students into their campus to increase the numbers of what we call diversity numbers, right? So for representation. But at the same time, our ways of teaching students, our curriculum, there's no change at all. I mean, if there are any changes, like very little changes. So we're asking these students to enter our campus, but we're failing to sort of teach them in ways that are meaningful to them, right? So curriculum basically hasn't changed. It's a very, you know, European American curriculum, right? The population of teachers mostly has remained, you know, steadily like mostly white, right? At UW, it's 78% white professors, right? And so it's sort of like strange to sort of keep on inviting students to go to our schools, and yet they don't study their cultures. They don't get to study their cultures, and they don't get to understand. They have to sort of be experts in other people's cultures in order to get a diploma, which is the strangest thing ever, which the students brought up to me. So that's one. The next one is this idea about getting a diploma in school, which the students sort of, I thought usually in education scholarship, when you study underrepresented groups, usually the focus is on why they're not being successful, right? You know, where's the racial gap? Where's the racial achievement gap here? How do we try to understand that? But for these students were actually not failing. They were actually doing well in school, and yet their feeling about going to school was not about success defined in just getting a diploma or getting good grades, but they wanted their school to sort of have a different definition of success other than, you know, sort of, again, getting A's and getting a diploma. So that sort of intrigued me a little bit because again, I'm so used to thinking about to reading education scholarship as scholarship that points to the ways in which um, students don't do well in school, and so the study becomes a study of how they can do well, right? So in this case, sort of, we reverse the equation in this book. It's like, well, how can schools do better, right, in terms of treating students versus how can students do better? So it sort of reverses our changes our meanings of success and failure in school. So that's the second one. And the third one is this idea of the ocean. And that's the book's title. I know in Kukui's intro, it's like a forthcoming book. It's now out. It's out in February. But it's this sort of idea about the ways in which you try to succeed in a place that devalues you, right? And the ocean as a way of engaging that kind of situation for Pacific Islanders, in very specific ways. Um, how the ocean is not something that's far away and separate from them, or how the ocean is not a thing that separates you between yourself and the islands of your ancestors, but how the ocean connects you, right? And this we take from Pacific Islander scholarship, mainly from Epeli Hau'ofa, who says that, well, oceans are not here to separate us. Oceans are here to connect us, right? So it's not, thank you, Lupe. Yes, so it's not like, um, instead of imagining, for example, the Pacific Ocean as a large body of water with islands in it, right? You can imagine the reverse, which is that, islands surrounded by ocean, right? Within and around the islands is ocean. And so to me, for the students, that was not only a very strong metaphor for trying to survive in a place that's set up for you to fail, right? But surviving well, which is like enabling the resources of your ancestors to take place in a place where your ancestors are supposedly not present because you're so far removed already from your islands, right? And you're in the mainland now. And so it's a way of thinking about continuing the connection with culture, hence ocean, right? And so that to me is stunning. It's like, this is amazing, how students, and I thought we need to record this, right? And hence the ethnography. So ethnography is about representing the people you study, right? And so thinking about the ways in which students don't necessarily like take the oppression as it is, but do something about it, yeah? So to me, that's very, not only interesting, but also quite inspiring and motivating. And so I'm the author of the book, but the students are the subject of the book. And so I'm just there to sort of record and kind of do like a little accounting and some analysis of what they're trying to do in relationship to education theory. So yeah, thank you for that question. I know it's like a long-winded answer about the origins of the book, but that's how it started. And sort of those are the three big takeaways, I guess, from the book. Enough to make you maybe be interested in reading it, hopefully.
Thank you for sharing. No,
You're
you
welcome.
made a lot of great points about student concerns while in higher education, so it makes a lot of sense. And going off of what you said about just talking about our connection to the ocean, I know you might have answered this in your
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
response, but why choose the ocean? You talked about Epeli Hau'ofa, but why the ocean?
Yeah, I mean, for the students, that was the closest thing they could reach into in terms of being separated from their culture and trying to bring back the culture alive in them, is to use the ocean. So the ocean in the book is not just a metaphor. It's not just a particular renaming of a place. It's also a source of a lot of different sort of cultural gems, right? Cultural tradition, practice. It's also a like 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 the Pacific. It's also a very it's a source of not only nourishment, but it's also a punishing place, right? So the ocean can actually, as you know, right? If it there's some you can experience the ocean in so many different ways, right? If you've had the experience just like me, of almost drowning in the ocean, it's like the ocean can actually eat you up, right? And so in a lot of ways they name their school as their ocean, because the ocean can indeed eat you up, right? If you're not careful, right? The ocean can overwhelm you, or like, kick you out, or sort of punish you in a lot of ways. As much as the ocean can love you, can actually embrace you, and sort of so it's sort of a lot of different meanings attributed to the ocean. But it's also interesting to sort of so that you can navigate your way through. That's what one chapter is called, how their school navigates them, right? It's a way of sort of also trying to make sense of a place that's so vast to them, right? Very forbidding, scary, but also filled with sort of opportunities to get pleasure out of it, right? So very much like the Pacific, yeah. It's like experiencing the campus as your ocean is quite meaningful in the sense that you can experience it in so many ways. You can learn how to navigate it, yeah, and then you can sort of trust it to be there to guide you, to navigate you, yeah. So yeah, hence the ocean. So the book doesn't do a whole lot of justice in terms of describing that, but there's a sentence there that says, the ocean is not only a place, it's also a process, and it's an experience, right? And so it's also a sacred space, actually. So yeah, so I like that too. It's just it's so it's amazing, how students can think of these things. I mean, these are not mine; these are all the students. Yeah, and to this day, we call the school our ocean. I mean, it's sort of like a secret language in a lot of ways for Pacific Islanders. It's a community kind of code word for how the ocean can be so rewarding, but also very punishing. Thank you, Kui.
Mahalo again for sharing that about your book, The Ocean in Our School. And just going off of what you just talked about again, how like the ocean has a lot of connections and has a large community of people. How would you say this book can be applied to other connections with Pacific Islanders, or maybe outside of Pacific Islanders, like other Asians or African folks? How would you apply your book or the use of the ocean in that way?
Yeah, well, the Pacific Islander students are the main characters of the book. They're the main subjects of study of the book, but the subtitle of the book is how Pacific Islander students and their allies transform their school. So it's not, I don't want to create the impression that it's only Pacific Islanders who are the only subjects of the book. There were so many different allies because as in regular life, we don't, it's getting rarer and rarer to find an organization that's exclusive to one race, right? Or exclusive to one ethnicity. Um, Pacific Islanders, like many groups, are very welcoming of others. I mean, if you're supportive of a cause, if you understand what students are fighting for within that group, of course they'll welcome you in, right? Especially with Pacific Islander students at UW. I mean, they're very, very few in number. So anyone who could just support them, they would welcome them, right? And so these students became allies. I mean, sort of informally, like, or jokingly, sometimes they would call themselves Pacific Islanders too. But of course, in public, they won't do that, right? Out of respect for the people. But there were a lot of different people who were involved in Pacific Islander causes at UW during the writing of this book, or the study of this book. Um, African Americans, African diasporic people, Southeast Asian Americans, they were prominent especially in the mentorship programs. Native Americans, Chicanos. So there's a lot, it's like, and of course, they tried to understand what ocean was about as well, right? And they were willing to learn about it. And, I mean, Islander people are very as you know, right, are very welcoming to others. It's not like we say no, to people. I mean, the moment they express some kind of support and alliance, and even just attending parties, there used to be a time at UW, it still happens today, in which, organizational activities are like, they're not exclusive to one group. They're very, very porous, right? Which is what happens in regular society anyway, right? I mean, we do create boundaries, but at the same time, those boundaries are very much crossed and traversed by different kinds of people all the time. Yeah. Thank you.
Mahalo for sharing again. Right now, I'm gonna open up the floor for questions to the audience. We really encourage you use the raise your hand feature on the Zoom, and if not, message any of the co-hosts to be unmuted so that we minimize any feedback. Or in the chat, you can also utilize the chat.
So the ocean is open for rowing.
Okay, I just unmuted myself, but I have a question, bonus.
How are you, Donna?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Nice background.
Thank you. In your book, you talked about the students that left. I didn't read the complete chapter, but it's one of the chapters that I thought was really eye-opening. Could you elaborate on that?
I know it was the toughest chapter to write. In education scholarship, they're called dropouts. And I try to not use that language there because it's so filled with negative sort of connotations, right? Or they call them stopouts, right? People who stop going to school. And so in that chapter, I followed about 7 students who left school. That's what I called them. That's why the chapter is called Those Who Left, which means that the blame is not solely on them, right? There is this school that they left. And so it's part of a criticism about why they left school. And the usual scholarship, the studies that we read most of the time about students who leave school, they're mostly filled with analysis about what was wrong with the students, right? What did they not have that made them leave? And it's very insulting, right? Because all the blame is on the students, right? It's as if the school had nothing to do with their departure. And so we reverse the equation in that chapter. And again, this is not originally mine. I mean, these are all students that I followed and I interviewed, because I did ask them, I said, why did you leave, right? Why did you stop? And then of course, as I don't want to give away everything about that chapter, but one of the overarching reasons why most of them left was because school did not have meaning for them any longer, right? Like they couldn't find any kind of inspiration anymore for staying in school other than being with Pacific Islanders or doing organizational stuff, which the school didn't value. I mean, if you are very active in organizations like the Polynesian Student Alliance, for example, you're not graded for it, right? You don't pass or fail it. Yeah. And so to them, that was the meaningful part of the school, right? And yet they were not being graded for it. And so why bother, right? And so to me, it's like, it's pointless to blame the students because it doesn't really address the issue of dropping out when you keep on blaming students, right? Because you focus the repair on the students, right? And so it reminded me of this sort of, the usual metaphor for the canary in the mine pit, right? So in the olden days, we used a bird in a cage in an underground mine pit before there were sort of barometers for testing the quality of air, right? And so when the miners see the bird die, right, it means that there's toxic air and they have to get out of the mine pit, yeah? And so to me, that's like it. It's like when students, quote unquote, fail school, right, the usual blame is that what happened to the bird, right? What happened to the student, right? But in this case, it's like what happened, what was in the environment that was toxic that made the bird sort of die, right? So I tried to use that metaphor to explain the reason why we need to think differently about students leaving school, right? Instead of constantly pointing fingers at them, that they're the reason, they're all at fault for why they stopped school. We should instead ask, what was wrong with the school, right? Or what was missing in the school that made these students leave. So yeah, I mean, it's like, it's not like students were happy to do this criticism, right? Or it's not like they were just looking for justification for why they left. But it's a very sad, sort of set of stories. That's why I wrote it the last, because it's just, I was always like in tears every time I wrote it, because I would look at my field notes and, all these letters that students wrote to me, saying goodbye, right? And so it's always very sad. And then I was also enraged because it's like school was this very insensitive, with this attitude of smugness, right? We don't care. You're just a statistic. Yeah. And so it's a big criticism of how, not only how we think about failure, but also the ways in which we allow schools to continue doing what they're doing without criticizing them. We're just making them do whatever they want to do. And it's sad, because imagine so many students leave school, and yet school doesn't, I mean, at least on the surface, it appears like schools don't do anything about that, right? So yeah, thank you for asking, Donna. I mean, it's like again, it's a sad chapter, but it's also a chapter in which, we can learn a lot of different things. Hi, Kiana.
I unmute myself. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. So
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm very good. Good to see you.
I know, good to see you too. We need to get you a background like us so you can be a part of our club.
I know.
So bonus, my question is, in your experience, like you've been there, watching students come through and understanding, having much more insight into why students leave than I would say much of the institutions, especially as, Pacific Islanders who make up only a fraction of a percent everywhere they are.
Yes.
And so very few people pay attention to the Islanders ever. And you're one of the few on a very short list that do.
Yeah.
What are ways that you've seen institutions change, if at all, so that they can prevent that? Because back in my day, long time ago, diversity was not this big thing that all the colleges cared about. And now, especially in the CTC system, every college has a chief diversity officer, somebody who focuses on making sure that inclusion or diversity practices, and give or take, depending on who they are, that might be beneficial, might not be. But in your experiences, what are the trends that you've seen colleges do to make sure that they do accommodate students who are the furthest from justice?
Absolutely. I'm not going to give you a nice answer though. It's like at glacier's pace, it's like very, very slow moving. And it mostly depends on the presence of someone semi-powerful, to say the least, to call attention to Pacific Islanders on every campus that I've noticed. At UW, and you know this, Kiana, at UW, it took students to teach administrators who Pacific Islanders are. Remember that? It's like we used to have these little workshops in which vice presidents would attend. The vice president for diversity would attend because they don't know a lot about, they don't know anything usually. Oh, I thought that was like my baby, whatever. There's this, it's like, it's so unfortunate, because if there are no politically active students, that's just on the student level, right? Nothing much will happen. No administrator would proactively search for Pacific Islanders unless that person is a Pacific Islander, and that's rare, right? Or is an ally of Pacific Islanders. So on our campus, students actually held little talks with the Vice President for Minority Affairs to teach her, you know, and she asked for this anyway too, and she was very grateful at the end, to teach her who Pacific Islanders are, because indeed it's like there's no knowledge out there, or there 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 are very very few people who care about even learning, right? So that's one. And then of course in academia, um, Pacific Islander studies is only beginning to get traction only recently, right? Um, we used to have Pacific Islander studies courses, but they're not taught by our people. And so it's a different kind of teaching, right? Because they teach marine affairs or tourism in the Pacific and stuff like that. And so it's students found it hard to identify with them. So in terms of recruiting faculty, and this is what happened with Filipino American Studies 20 years ago. It's like the usual complaint was, well, we don't have Filipino American Studies because there are no teachers, right? But then how can you have students if there are no teachers? And how can you have teachers if there are no students? And so it's this whole circular argument. And it's like, who wants to break the circle, right? And so far we've had a few. I mean, there are more and more graduate students who are emerging and entering the profession, which is great, you know. I'm gonna advocate for one sometime next year, at least one or two, right, Pacific Islander Studies professors at UW, because our peer institutions are already hiring people like that. So yeah, it's like, it's slow moving, you know, and it takes a lot of student work, which is again, both exciting, but also taxing for students, right? It should not be on their shoulders, right? That these things have to happen. But most of the time, students get so frustrated on their first or second years that they become activists right away, because they get so enraged that there's nothing, you know, on Pacific Islanders. And it's like, and they meet other enraged people, right? And so they form a collective mass, which is what happened at the UW many times, right? At the same time, ethnic studies, you know, didn't start from above. Ethnic studies started as grassroots community protests, right? They started from below. And the sort of the inspiring thing about this, but also a very challenging thing about this, is that these fields of study enter the university as critical of the university already. And so which university will support that, right? Something that bites your hand already as they're entering in, yeah? And so they're in a very, very precarious position in terms of both being a part of the university, but also very critical of the university. So when presidents of universities hear them, it's like, oh my gosh, these are the troublemakers, right? We should not be, you know, promoting them, because, you know, they're going to destroy our university, right? And so it's like, and we forget that students are the ones who transform the university, not professors, not administrators, you know. And so, and again, another sad fact about this is that when change actually happens, students graduate, the very students who protested are gone. They're not there anymore. They graduated already, which is what happened at UW when we finally launched the Oceania and Pacific Islander Studies minor. In my speech, I said we should thank all of these students for giving us the gift of this minor, and yet they're not here, right? They're the most noble of people, because it's like they fought for something that they couldn't benefit directly from. It's the generation after them that's benefiting it. And that to me is like, wow, you know, that's amazing. We don't fully recognize that most of the time. Yeah, the work of students. And so I know, Kiana, it's like, you know, I mean, more and more of us are getting to be in good places already, like you, for example. So, you know, and that makes a big difference. Oh, hi, Latu, how are you? That makes a big difference, you know. if you can identify the highest ranking Pacific Islander educational administrator in the state, so, I mean, these are, once you get into the halls of power, you can make a whole lot of difference, right? Because if there's no one there, no one will talk about us. If there's no one in the table that says, hey, excuse me, we're forgetting there are Pacific Islanders issues here, no one will do that unless, you're there. And that's from experience, Thank you, thank you. But there's hope, don't worry. As long as we have proactive students and teachers and administrators and staff, we'll be good.
Hey, Bonus.
Hello. Hi, Lupe. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
You're from the same cloth.
Hopefully.
Yes.
I wanted to know, because you talked a lot about like culture and how it affected the students.
Yeah.
What is your perspective, or what have you learned about the role of culture in academics?
Yeah.
And maybe like, why was it so important to like hold these values and like to practice culture in a space that didn't welcome it?
Absolutely. Culture for a dominant society in schooling is a bad word. To them, culture is like extracurricular. We're not going to grade that. They're just fun stuff that students do. Students just want to hang out with themselves and learn their own dance. They're just trying to get to know their boyfriends or girlfriends' culture, right? You've heard that before, right? And in many big universities or even small universities and colleges, cultural stuff are always extracurricular. They're on the side, right? And then another situation is that for Pacific Islanders, culture is central, right? So it's the opposite, right? Culture is the identity, the source of identity, right? And so to them, and also culture is a response to stereotypes, right? And so the usual stereotypes for Pacific Islanders would be hula dancers or athletes, right? And yet in a kind of contradictory way, students gravitated to that, right? Oh, I want to perform my culture on stage. I want to teach people what my culture is, right? And so in a way, these are a lot of learning sites, right? That's why in the book, I argue with the students that culture should not be extracurricular. Culture should be at the center of studies because that's the thing that's meaningful to students, right? And so I think for white dominant culture, culture is a site of art and entertainment and pleasure, right? Not to say that for Pacific Islanders, they're not. Culture is all that, but also culture is a sacred space. Culture is, for hula in Hawaii, culture is a form of protest. Hula is a form of protest. It's not about sexy dancing or revealing body parts, right? It's about sovereignty and self-determination. It's about reviving things that have been destroyed before or forbidden, right? So the meaning of culture, especially for Islanders, is quite qualitatively different from culture imagined by members of dominant culture, right? And so no wonder students did a lot of culture despite stereotypes, despite all these devaluing of what culture is, right? Culture for a lot of the students was a way of not only preserving or retaining their community, but also reinventing the identity, right? There's no such thing as a pure copy of a dance from Samoa, right? It's already been transformed the moment it moved across the ocean, yeah? And so students were interpreting what they thought was Samoan culture in a Samoan dance. And to me, that's a side of not only imagination, but it's also a side of power, right? Because it's like you're trying to self-determine for your culture and your community, what do you think is sacred or valuable, right? And so the analysis of culture in the book is not about aesthetic form, about movement, or not to say that they're not important, they are. But to me, culture for the students, at least the way the students articulated culture, was a form of conversation, a form of protest, a form of pride, right? And a pedagogical tool. You know, it's also like trying to teach the audience what is our culture, right? And so, yeah, I mean, it's just an exciting way to think differently about the value of cultural performance, for example, on a stage, right? But it's also a side of struggle because it's like students struggled with, you know, am I perpetuating stereotypes here, right? Am I perpetuating certain kinds of ideas about Pacific Islanders that I don't want them to think about, right? Things like that. Should we allow, you know, white students to dance our culture, right? Should we be okay with, you know, having members of other cultures perform our culture, right? So things like that. I mean, the book didn't come up with, you know, like sure answers for these things, right? Because they're ongoing questions about the meaning of culture, the meaning of life, right? And so, and you did a whole lot of dancing too, Lupe. Yeah, chanting, dancing, right? And so, yeah. So to me, that's very, very central, I guess, for the students, especially in the book, which was nice, I thought.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We have a hand raised from Deborah Tunganga.
Deborah. Where is Deborah?
Hello,
Hi,
Bonus.
oh,
Hi,
hi,
Dr.
Deborah.
Bonus.
How are you? Oh my gosh. Is that the same cloth? That's beautiful. Oh my goodness.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Made from one of our local artists named Kyunga. Yes, I have a quick question. I hope you have a quick answer.
Yes, quick. Okay, we'll
so
try.
I don't know if you can share this, but how do students who drop out navigate conversations with their family, right? Because education is when, you know, remember like getting into college is such an exciting thing. It's such a prideful thing. So what happened then to students who then drop out, and how do they navigate that conversation with their parents? And then another thing to that is, how do we then support our family who dropped out? And is returning to school, is it beneficial for those who dropped out or not?
Okay, that's not going to be a short answer, Deborah. Yeah, with much difficulty, for sure. I wasn't privy to a lot of conversations with parents, right? Although some students made me talk to their parents to explain why they were giving up on school. It's hard. I mean, you could just imagine that it's a struggle to go against your parents' wishes, right? Especially if your parents are immigrants, for example, or at least migrants, right? Internal migrants from the islands to the mainland, because education is seen, and these are not very specific to Pacific Islanders. This is specific to a lot of immigrants and a lot of US people, right? In the sense that school is a ticket, passport for success, right? And if you give up on it, then you're doomed, practically, right? And in a lot of ways, the economy punishes you if you don't have a degree. And so parents know that, obviously, right? And so they don't want their kids to make that mistake, right? Clearly, yeah. And so I think part of the strategy for students is to find a middle ground, right? It's like, you know, okay, mom, I'm gonna stop school for a while just to settle things, you know, to calm things down, and then I promise you I'm gonna return, right? And then, you know, I mean, who knows if that student gets to fulfill that promise or not? But I find out that sort of that's a one way. It's not to fool a parent or to deceive a parent, right? But it's to tell the parents that, look, there's something going on. Your child cannot handle it right now, and so taking a break is not rare, right? Taking a break, it happens to everybody. Because I think parents think that it's just my son or just my daughter, right, who's taking a break, right? And I kind of correct that assumption to them. You know, I mean, President Obama's daughter, is taking a break, right? And so it's not like, it's not like this is rare. It's not, and so, and also it's a way to sort of reimagine school as a place that's part of the community. So you can go back to it. You can come back to it if you want, right? Or if you desire to do so. And so that's just a couple of strategies. And I think that the thing with parents is that you cannot point fingers at them. I mean, we all know this, right?
Yeah.
Because they also think they're the ones who made a mistake, right? They're the ones who did not rear their child correctly, for example, right? And it's not that, And I think my parents, for example, did not know what going to college in the US meant. I mean, they have ideas, right? But they went to schools in another place, right, in the Philippines and stuff. And so when they think about school, it's a particular idea, right? And my mom never set foot in a college until I graduated, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, she was afraid of school. It's like, it's this daunting, beautiful green spaces and stuff. And so by the time my mom came to my graduation at UCLA, it's like, oh my gosh, this is like beautiful, and UCLA is next to Beverly Hills, right? So it's like, white place, right? Hollywood actors and stuff, And so for my mom, that's a very forbidding place. She's this small town woman from a rural place in the Philippines, right? And so I was kind of thinking of stopping school at some point. Before I could finish my sentence, she almost wanted to slap me already. It's like, you have a scholarship. Why are you giving up on that? Stuff like that. So I don't know if I'm addressing your question, Deborah, but yeah, there's no sort of magic recipe for dealing with this.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of like patient conversation with parents,
And then
they did invest a lot, right?
Yeah, that's true. Do you know of any students who did return and whether they came back and then graduated or came back and just decided school was not?
Oh, many came back.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if I should reveal this, but the artist of the cover of the book left school for a while and then came back.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it's not like, I mean, it's not all like hopeless.
All sad. Yeah. Awesome.
I think some people just want to take a break for a while. And I think for a lot of parents, that's not part of the script, right? You just keep on, moving. And it's like, and then the signal to you is that, like, why are you too weak, to handle the situation, right? And then with some parents that I was able to talk to, I kind of reversed the equation. The school is too weak for them, handle those students, right? And so don't worry about your daughter. She's gonna come back. It's okay, just have her take a break, right?
Yeah, that's true. Thank you so much for answering that.
Thank you.
We have a question from Emily.
So I just joined. I just saw this post off of Instagram not too long ago, but I guess this is kind of like a follow-up question to Deborah. And
yes.
Thank you, by the way, for...
You're welcome, Emily. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
All right.
On the other side of things, of being in positions in higher ed or working in higher ed, what approaches do you suggest, or what can we do to further support these students who like are on the verge of dropping out or like are just struggling with academics?
Not only in my book, but many studies show that when a student, and this might sound very obvious to all of us, right? But for education scholars, you have to specify this, right, in a funny way. But the more students find meaning in school, the more their chances of staying and being successful and graduating from it, right? So again, it sounds so obvious, right? But meaningfulness can be achieved in so many different ways, right? So for Pacific Islanders, at least for the book, meaningfulness is about community. It's about the ocean, right? It's about existing in a place that values you or that recognizes you not just as a statistic, but as a person, as a Pacific Islander, right? And so for a lot of students who to keep up with school or to stay in school and then graduate eventually, once these things get removed, it's very, very hard for them to continue, right? The specter of sort of like, or the kind of imagination that you're doing a lot of community work in school, but you're not doing so well in your academics is a very frightening situation for students, because they know that they can be kicked out of school because of grades. They will not get kicked out if they miss organizational meetings in the Polynesian Student Alliance. Everybody knows that, right? You can turn your back on your community in school and actually be rewarded for it, because then people will think, oh, at last that student will focus on her academics, right? And so part of the advocacy here will be to change the minds of people who run our school. And I know that's a big ship, right? And so that's why students need community to do that. They cannot do these things by themselves, right? And so in the book, there are many, many strategies that students do, like they write their term papers on the history of their culture, right? So that they try to integrate their own culture into the curriculum that doesn't have their culture, right? So they teach their teachers about their history and their culture. That's a biggie, right? And then they sort of like, they try to integrate community with their studies, right? And so at least at UW, they fought for an actual class to be taught on their history and their culture, right? As a group, as a big group, they prodded some university officials to raise some money to fund a teacher who can teach their culture. So a lot of pro-activism on the part of the students. In terms of administrators, it depends, because schools, in a rough sense, are divided into two, right? Academics and student affairs. And so, at least in my school, those two compete for power, right? So one is like imagined as the brains, right? It's all about academics, curriculum stuff. And to be able to make a change in that half of the university, you need some credentials. You need to have a PhD, you need to be a professor, because you're going to argue intellectually, right? And then on the student development side, which supposedly are not allowed to take care of curriculum, which is, I think, a bad practice, they take care of student support, right? And so that means like supporting student activities, student organizations and stuff. The intervention there is important, equally important as the intervention intellectually, right? On both counts, you need people in place to be there to advocate for, in this case, Pacific Islanders. Because if there's none, it's very, very hard, right? When white allies advocate for us, that's also important, because white people listen to other white people, right? I mean, it's unfortunate to have it that way, but it's important to have allies in power, right? Because they're the ones, if your voice is not there, they need to voice out for you, right? And if there's no voice to defend or protect or pursue the interests of small, very tiny groups like Pacific Islanders, it's not gonna happen, right? And so, and especially in places like the university, in which it's very hierarchical, right? You can't sort of poke holes at the ship, right? As easily as, you have to be in higher positions to be able to do that, right? And so it's a struggle, right? But a lot of good things are happening. We're getting there. So, did I answer your question, Emily?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. And I forgot to mention, I work at University of Washington too. I just recently graduated from WSU, so it's kind of interesting. But
oh my God, can I ask you which department you're at?
Yeah, I'm event coordinator for the electrical and computer engineering department.
Oh, fantastic! Very nice, very good. There, I mean, that's a good intervention place, you know, because
Mhm.
STEM is usually very caught up, you know, in sort of professional standards and stuff, in which culture is not a part of that, you know. And
Right. Yeah, and I
yeah,
look forward to getting more involved in the student community part. So this is good.
absolutely.
I found
Thank
this
you.
place.
Yes, congratulations and thank you and welcome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
I have a question. We have time.
yes, Nestor. How are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Nice background.
Oh, thank you. So here's my question. So I know that there's tensions between Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Do you have any suggestions about how we can both be better allies? And also part two, where do the Filipinos fit in this equation?
Oh, Filipinos. Okay. Well, you are Filipino too. So let me answer that question too first, right? uh, Filipinos are in and I can say this because I'm Filipino, I guess, are in a weird place, right? Because they are such a mix of so many different things, right? Spanish colonization, Chinese traders, US occupation, right? All kinds of things, and then mixed marriages, right? And so the interesting thing about Filipinos at UW is that a lot of them identify as Pacific Islander, not only because, like you, they're products of mixed relationships, but also because they want to ally. They want to identify themselves. They see more Islander stuff in themselves than Asian, right? So we get that on some level. But at the same time, in my experience, Filipinos at UW were very, very careful not to be exploited by the university in terms of um, sort of deluding people into thinking that the Pacific Islander category is a huge category. Because once you put Filipinos there, Filipinos like 1,200 people, right, at the university. And Pacific Islanders would be like 340, right? So if you say, oh my gosh, Pacific Islanders now are 1,600, you know, it's like you're inflating the numbers now just because you added Filipinos, right? And the nice thing about if I can say so, the nice thing about Filipinos in this case is that they were so protective of their Pacific Islander brothers and sisters that they told the university, stop classifying us as Pacific Islanders, right? Because you're making it seem like the Pacific Islander number is huge now just because of our numbers. In fact, they they could see from a mile away how they're being used. Yeah, so that's nice, right? On the other hand, they also said stop counting us as Asian American because we don't identify with them, right? And so the provost asked, what do you want to be identified as, right? And you know what the Filipino student said, right? Just say Filipinos. So at UW, if you notice, there's a separate category for Filipinos. They're neither Pacific Islander nor Asian American, nor Southeast Asian American too, right? And that's because of student activism. Provosts don't think naturally like that, right? They won't say, oh, wow, you know, these Filipinos or whatever, right? And so in a lot of ways, you have to be very, very strategic about these things because you don't want to, you don't want to make Pacific Islanders angry, right? In the sense that, why are you identifying with it? So you're changing the numbers, right? So it's nice that Filipinos are able to do that. I kind of I'm very strategic about calling myself Pacific Islander. So in certain spaces, I would call myself Filipino. In other spaces where there's alliance that's needed, I call myself Pacific Islander because I identify and ally with them. But I also am very, very careful and conscious about respecting, blood and Pacific Islander cultures in specific, right? I don't want to say, you know, I want to be a member of your culture because I like your culture, right? I don't want to give that impression. But if there's a Pacific Islander cause that they need help with, I'm gonna do that, right? Also saying that I'm Filipino and Pacific Islander, right? And so I think that that's a good sort of kind of formula to adapt, right? You're very strategic about the ways in which you sort of identify yourself, because you want to be mindful of the kinds of politics of numbers and identity, right? There's more affinity between Pacific Islanders and Southeast Asian Americans at UW, especially because those are two very small numbers at some point. Now, the numbers for Southeast Asians the number is going higher compared to Pacific Islanders, but at some point they were almost the same, right? And so there's a lot of alliance building that happened between Pacific Islanders and Southeast Asian Americans. In terms of making better our association or alliances, there's really no hard and fast formula for that. I mean, all of these things are effective and good only if they're organic, right? You cannot force them, right? But the moment they see connections between refugee status and being colonized islander, there's a lot of connections there already, right? Victims, like definitions of indigeneity, for example, there's a lot of parallels. Colonization experience of ancestors, a lot of parallels there, right? And then marginal status within larger groups. So for example, Southeast Asians, they're very, very marginalized in the larger group called Asian Americans, right? And maybe you can say that for, I don't know, Tongan Samoans, for a larger group called Pacific Islanders, right? Or even Micronesians and Melanesians, right? And so a lot of these things are like alliance building that happen organically. I mean, you can set a foundation, or you can sort of create situations in which they can observe and recognize their commonalities. But I'm not too keen on forcing them to ally with each other, right? Because anything that's forced is not good. But I think there are sort of organic alliances on many different strands across these big groups. It's easy to exploit them too, because if you combine the numbers, it's like then you inflate certain categories in a bad way. Yeah. So there's a lot, at least in the mentorship program that I run at UW, and you know this because you were part of that before, a lot of Southeast Asian American students come actually. And then they attend each other's events too, In fact, the student director now of the Pacific Islander Partnership in Education Mentorship Program is a Vietnamese American, so, who dances Samoan dances, so yeah. Did I answer it, Nestor?
Yes, thank you so much, Dr.
You're
Bonus.
welcome.
Dr. Bonus, if you're still taking questions, I'm not sure if you've already covered this. And hey, my name's Aki,
Hi, Aki.
from Pierce College. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you again too.
I wanted to ask, as I've been supporting Pacific Islander students at Pierce College, it makes me think about what we're doing to also raise the next leaders of our institutions. And I just wanted to ask a little bit about if in your book or your research you found that having engaged with faculty or staff that you developed students through your mentorship program who rose into higher ed in varying capacity. So what recommendations might you have for a system change? Because if it exists at the University of Washington, I'm wondering where else there may be fertile ground in our state to do that as well.
In terms of building the pipeline like that?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you already said it. I mean, mentorship is a big thing, right? Modeling for students what a professor does, what a school administrator does. A lot of them don't know, right? And so you try to show them that, that this is what I do for a living. And it's possible for you to do this for a living as well, right? Let me see. I think exposing students to a wide variety of careers in which they could make a difference in society. I mean, I know it's a very general sounding sort of answer, right? But there are many kinds of leadership programs everywhere, that they can avail of. Doing leadership programs on campus also is a great thing. A lot of the students who end up, at least on my campus, Pacific Islanders, who are now like, I can name several. Well, there are at least 2 professors, a couple of people who've gone to graduate school, administrators and staff around us in this ocean that we have right now, rose from the ranks, right? And so showing to them that there are ways we can make a difference in school by improving our educational systems, right? That's just one. There's so many different places you can go to in which you can be of value to the community by advocating for the interests of the community, right?
Right.
Am I addressing your question? Yeah. It's tough because it's like it's a wide stage, right? And they can go into so many ways. And we forget that there are artists, a lot of artists, poets, musicians, Pacific Islanders who are into culture, right? That don't get enough recognition. And I think these are all potentially, these are good careers, to explore for our students,
Thank you. Thank you. As an Asian American ally, I think sometimes I'm between the space of recognizing that we are amongst that wave of change in the ocean as we speak right now, and also wanting to help that wave become even bigger.
Absolutely. Yeah. And students look up to us, to sort of show them the way, because they're interested. They just need some guidance and support, right? That's why it's a must that we are in places like this to mentor, to be models for students, to guide them, to support them. I mean, I always tell my students to stay healthy, because you want to be in this struggle for the long haul, right? You don't want to get sick right away, right? Because fighting racism, it has its toll on you physically and mentally, right? And so one rule of thumb that I have is, pick your battles. Don't fight with everybody every day, because you're going to get sick. Yeah. I used to do that when I was a young professor. And then my mentor told me, Rick, stop, because he could see that it takes a toll on your body, right? And you don't want to, you want to show that to your students, that there are days when you have to rest, you have to pull yourself together. You cannot just be doing battles every day of your working hours, right? Fighting the system. And the system is very, very large and powerful. And, and so you want to stay for the long haul to fight it, right? And so, yeah, and this happens in college, you call that burnout, right? And so it's like we see a lot of our students burning out. And I know some students got mad at me for this, but some of them, I pulled them aside and I said, stop, whatever you're doing, you are getting sick. You should be eating. You should be taking care of your body. The battle is going to last for a long time. It's not like it's going to be solved by you today, right? And so it's like, don't tire yourself out, because if you get sick, then you're a loss for the community, right? And so you want to preserve, energy. You want to, it sounds like a fad, but with us at UW, taking care, mental health care, we've been engaged with that for a long time. And now it appears like it's a little fad, right? But I remember in PSA, we used to have like little, like meditation or even like soft chanting that we used to do. And it's like to just put ourselves back to our core, like that. It's like an oceanic attitude practice, It's like, and then of course, like eating, right? So, a lot of people thought that all these Pacific Island students, they always have parties. And it's like, well, socializing is an important part of our politics, It's like, it's a way to relax. It's a way to sort of build bonds, right? Social bonds together. It's not a frivolous thing, right? And so you don't want, yeah, and you don't want, you don't want dominant culture to see you tire out, actually. And I suspect that's their purpose. It's like to tire us out, right? And so it's like, yeah, I don't want to fight your battle every day, because that's not gonna work. Right?
Thank you so much for addressing
Welcome.
that side.
Yeah, you're welcome. I know in the pandemic too, it's like, do you guys see a lot of statistics on Pacific Islanders in the pandemic? It's idiotic. It's like, why can't we get numbers of in case there are infections on the islands, right? And so they keep on saying that, well, there's no testing on the islands. It's like, why can't we do test kits there, right? It's just amazing. It's like the third world always gets the last end of the, the bad stick, right? I know I have to be reading the chat, right? Sorry. Oh, they're private. Sorry.
I guess. Can you hear me?
Who's speaking?
It's me, Edwina.
Oh, hi, Edwina. How are you?
Good. I was testing if I'm on here like on 2 accounts. I wanted to make sure my audio was working, so I guess it is.
Yes.
But Dr. Rick, following. Sorry, sorry. What was that?
Thank you for helping organize this.
Thank you for being here. I've just been inspired. I know I had some other questions I was going to ask you, but just thinking about your own experience and your own journey. And I'm also thinking about, future professors who may be in this space.
That's
or
you.
who want to go teaching. Yes, hopefully.
You. Yes.
Hopefully, yes, in 10 years from now.
Yes.
If we're all still around. But anyways, I have a question. Like, what was your experience like? Not only thinking about yourself as a faculty member, but what was your experience like, and how did you find the ocean in your school? I'm flipping the question on you, but then also even now, like as you're navigating, like as a professor at the UW, like what are some of what are some of your shared struggles or advice that you would have for like future professors in the field?
Yeah, I know I'm gonna sound like redundant, but I'm sure you will agree that community is number one. Find your community, right? When I was a graduate student in San Diego, I felt so all alone. I mean, I was in this PhD program of about 15 people, and there were 14 white people. And I was number 15. And so it's like I was about to die on the first day of school. I was like, oh my goodness, what did I get myself into, right? And then I saw this, I went to this little gathering that invited, if you feel sad or lost in graduate school, come to this event. And so I said, oh, that's me. And there I met a lot of, all these other students, graduate students of color on campus a world that I didn't know existed, right? And I befriended this Vietnamese American graduate student from sociology. And she ended up being a lifelong friend. And both of us were first years. And we searched for other people who were like us, right? That's what Pacific Islanders did. In the book, I tell that story. It's like on the street, on the ad, like, are you Tongan? Like that, right? It's like that. That's how you sort of, this whole thing about the experience of recognition, like you recognize yourself in someone else, right? That's very key, and that's very magical. I hate to sound corny and sappy, right? But it's like it's this magical moment in which, like, oh my gosh, you feel so all alone, and all of a sudden there is this community, there is this person that you can see yourself into, right? And that's what happened to me, and that's been replicated many times by all of us, I think, in this session, right? It's like you find your community, because without community, you're not going to make it, right? In most white cultures, succeeding in graduate school means getting used to a solitary experience. That's the training we get as graduate students, actually. My teachers in graduate school, all of the homework, you have to do it by yourself in the library. Go right now, by yourself, right? That's how they taught us. That's what we call being socialized as an academic, because to them, that's the model. The model is you got to be this intellectual thinker by yourself in some corner in the library and write books. That's sort of their model for what, how to be a great professor, right? In, in you hearing me say that, right? That's exactly the opposite of our cultures, right? You never do things alone, right? It's like your achievement is the achievement of your family, yeah? And so it's diametrically in my socialization into graduate school was diametrically in opposition to my culture, right? And so that's like a barrier right from the very beginning, because the way you're going to be evaluated from that moment until you become a professor is through that standard. Did you produce a book all by yourself, right? So if you notice, a lot of professors who quote unquote get rewarded in schools are the ones who wrote books by themselves, right? Which is their standard. So in communities like ours, in which most of the work is done collectively, or most of the rewarded work is actually collective work, that's a difficult place to navigate, because it's like you have to change the minds of everybody who evaluates you, right? Because if an evaluator sees your work and says, oh my gosh, this Rick, he has produced books, but it's like with other people, what's wrong with him, right? You'll never get promoted. In fact, you'll be seen as someone who cheats, because it's like you're supposed to do these things all by yourself, right? So the secret there is that if more and more of us enter the university, we can change the rules, right? If we can change the rules to make it so that we reward collective work rather than punish collective work, because that is our culture, right? And so the more we encourage people to join the ranks, the better the chances of that change happening, right? Because we all know that the rules of the university were made by a specific group of people who want their people to be part of the club, right? And so people like us are always imagined to be like, you know, the barbarians at the gate, right? It's like we're the intruders, right? And so they're very, in a lot of ways, they're very fearful of people like us, because we're going to transform the place, right? And if more and more of us will come in, then, you know, and that's why, I don't know, you see a lot of different ways in which they try to guard the gates, right? And then unfortunately for them, a few of us get in every now and then, right? And so with the help of the community, right? So that's one big strategy, you know, community. I always tell my students in the beginning of every class that I teach, in the curriculum that I designed for you, find yourselves in it. Try to look for yourselves. Identification and recognition are very, very important, because if you feel like you're in a strange spot, you're not gonna flourish, right? And so I tell my students, a secret to succeeding in my class is to always look for yourself, find a connection, right? Oh my gosh, that happened to my mom, you know, like that, right? Even simple connections like that, right? And then, I don't know, it's like, it's a very islander thing to have an attitude would be like, to always do things not for yourself. Always think about, you know what, it's not for me, it's for them, right? Sort of this very selfless kind of way. And I know it's kind of corny, but at the same time, it's like, because you don't benefit. I mean, I always challenge my students to do something in which they don't benefit from directly. And let's see what your feelings would be, right? And a lot of them get surprised. It's like, that's a beautiful feeling. It's like you did something that you did not benefit from. You know, it's like, I don't know, it's like a heavenly feeling, because it's like watching, have you been to the immigrant rallies every May? I know there's a pandemic, that's why we didn't do it, right? A sea of, an ocean of people who are fighting for immigrant rights, and they're not immigrants. And they are spending an hour of their day to do a protest march, right? With their children. The entire family is involved, right? And to me, that's amazing, because it's like, it's very rare in a capitalistic society like ours to do something in which you're not getting paid. You know, so unfortunate, right? But I think it's also a very rewarding experience, because it's like you come home and it's like you feel like you've helped people without getting paid. And to me, that's a very pure sort of nice experience, right? So that's the other thing, you know, I mean, every now and then do something. White people call it charity, right? So every now and then do something in which you're not going to benefit from it. Just give it away, you know, like that. And that, I think, enriches your soul. Surviving in a place that that is set up so that you don't succeed, that's a very hard thing to do. That's why you have to find community. You have to give of yourself, right? And then you have to pick your battles. It's like you have to learn how to relax, right? So you, Edwin, I'm gonna wait for you. I'm gonna be in your class when you get to be a professor.
Oh, well.
I'm gonna sit in. And then I'm
And
gonna
all the
say,
other professors, call them out. They're all here.
Lupe is gonna be professor, Kiana's gonna be a professor,
Yeah.
Donna, everybody, yes, Helen. It's like, you know, I wanna sit in. And then I'll tell you after class. Do you remember we did that Zoom in a moment of pandemic conditions at some point? And we were talking about you becoming a professor. Yeah, so I'm gonna remind you of that.
I'm gonna talk about tea time with Dr. Bonus. That's what's going
Yeah,
on.
yeah. I know. I think, you know, I think our students deserve taking classes of their culture, about their culture and their history in a 5-star university. You know, it's like, that's the best feeling, because then you feel like you're a part of this community, you know. The school is yours. And technically the school is yours. It's a public school, right? And so technically the school is yours. So they should be teaching your culture, right? So yeah, we're gonna wait for you guys. Nestor, Professor Nestor too, yes. And Professor Alina. And Professor Asu. And Professor Ayopu. And Professor Rachel. How are you?
Hello, Dr. Bonus.
Hello, who is speaking?
This is Rachel.
Oh, Rachel, okay, because see, I can't see your picture. Okay, there you go. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
All right.
I have a question.
Tell
what
me.
do you think about the Micronesian community and their involvement in education? It's so hard to have that conversation with our families, and I just want to know what your opinion is about that.
It is. I know. I'm sorry that there's not a lot, right? And if you're interested, you should pursue a career in education. Yeah. Oh, see, we hear a complaint. Yes. Yeah. They're not that invisible. You can search them, right? There's this. I wonder if most of you know Professor Camacho, Keith Camacho, right, from UCLA. He has a lot of students that he mentors to. He's a historian, and he just wrote a book on the history of a part of the history of the prison system in Guam, and so that's someone to check out, right? What can I say? I would like to encourage more and more Micronesians to enter the fray. You know, I think that you know, United States quote unquote properties outside of the mainland, this is our time. You know, our histories have not been written as much. Our cultures have not been written as much, and so I try my best to encourage. Yeah, where are you at right now, Rachel? In terms of
Everett, Washington.
Yeah.
Everett.
And are you still in school, or are you working already, or both?
I had to go back to get a teacher certificate, and
oh, that's fantastic. Yeah.
It's kind of silly. My family have a hard time with me being in school, you know, because I'm kind of older now, and I'm not bringing money into the family, and so it's such a weird position to be in. But yes, I'm in school.
It's never too late. Wait, is your family in opposition to you being in school?
They're supportive.
Oh, okay. That's
I don't know if it's easy or hard, but they're supportive.
no. I mean, I don't mean to call you out like that, but my parents, maybe this might sound bad. This might give a very bad impression of them, but they were not as supportive too because they were expecting me to work, and that's a very Filipino and Islander thing. It's like you're supposed to be working. Why are you spending so much time in school, right? Graduate school took me like what, 6 years, 7 years, and so it's like everyone was so eager for me to start working, right? I was also working when I was in graduate school. I was a bartender, but it's not like I could do it every day, right? But it's a struggle because again, there are expectations, right? And there are sort of like these sort of barriers that we face. But you know what I told my parents? I said, you know what? Just be patient a little bit. We're gonna get there, right? And so, and then I told my mom, you're gonna get a doctor for a son, so don't worry. It's not gonna be the healing doctor, but it's gonna be, like a person who's gonna be called a doctor. And so, and my parents don't understand what graduate school didn't understand to this day. I think what going to graduate school meant, right? Because it's not in their radar screen and stuff. And so I don't know, my mom was so fearful that I was gonna turn into a white person actually, because I was speaking a different vocabulary. I started speaking differently. I kind of called myself out for doing that. It's like, I think my mom felt insulted when I had a conversation with her at some point when I was in graduate school because I was saying English words that she didn't recognize. And I didn't mean to, but she got hurt, and I understand, right? And so I changed myself. It's like, not to say that I dumbed her down, right? I did not. I mean, I just refrained from acting white, I guess. And so that's a big struggle for people like us who enter the university, because then we change, we get socialized differently. And that's why, again, community is important in school, because you want to have your friends remind you, call you out every now and then if you're like being sasa or something, whatever. If you're misbehaving or something, like speaking like you're the greatest or like you're the shits, right? It's like these are the people who will call you out. So you need them. Yeah. Because there's a way in which school not only corrupts you, but also makes you feel like you're superior among others. And that's not nice, right? That's not good for anybody, right? And so that's my lesson for myself. My mom, who called me out and said, stop speaking to me that way. I'm not stupid. And I felt so awful because it's like, I didn't even realize this was happening, And so I catch myself every now and then to this day, right? And then I also remind my students every now and then, you might have a degree, but you're not the shits, please, Be humble, right? Try to be modest, because it's not good to, especially because my feeling about this is that if you turn out to be like that, then either you've lost your soul, you've turned to the dark side, or that the white people were successful in you, and you don't want them to be successful in you, right? So you don't want to give them their prize, that you're a convert to their culture, right? And that's, to me, that's the strangest thing, because it's like, you're not only a traitor to your culture, but you're a traitor to yourself, because that's not you, right? And and as I said, schools are very powerful in doing that. They can remake you. So be careful, especially in graduate school, because it's intensive training. And that's why a lot of my students who went to graduate school, they kept in touch with me, with us, because they want to keep that level of being checked, being called out, in case they're like changing in a bad way. Why are you laughing, Donna? I can't hear.
Kiana's message.
Oh, what did she say? Speak, yes.
Oh, I was just saying that because you said if you have a degree, you're not the shits, and we're all agreeing with you that we came home with our degrees and our parents told us, that's good, go wash the dishes.
Exactly, yes. I know, exactly. Yeah, I know. It's like my mom was not impressed. She was like, oh, you just made the white people happy. I'm not impressed.
Bonus, my dad loved to flaunt that I was at UW, but then we're at home. It was like, it doesn't matter anymore.
I know. I know. At home, it's like you're the same as us. You're this little boy. Exactly. I know. It's nice to have people check you on that, because it's so easy to walk away with like feeling like you're the shits, and it's like actually you're not. And so you want family to do that to you, not a stranger, right? I know. That's why we need community all the time, because these are the people who will call you out and say, calm down. Hi, Helen. How are you? Helen,
Hi, I'm doing well.
congratulations on your graduation.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. It's 3 more weeks and then I'll be done with my final deliverable.
We
And
will
then,
we will call you Master Helen.
oh no. It's such an awkward, it's like a weird, like the letters you put behind my name would be so long and ridiculous. It's not even that cool. Like nobody would get it.
I know. It's
But
like,
thank you. I just
welcome.
wanted to say, what you knew when you said like find the connection or find yourself within that's how I've been surviving.
Yeah.
I've noticed that like the classes that I got like 4.0s in and really good grades in were the ones that I was able to really use my own personal experiences in. That and I think like professors also appreciated that. Probably also because I think I'm the only PI in the class in the entire program.
Yeah.
Word is the largest.
I know. It's gonna be like that for the next couple of years, until we all get in. Yeah. And it's so lonely, isn't it? It's like it's sad and lonely and kind of anger provoking, because it's like, why is it just me? Like that. And then you're always used.
Yep.
Did you experience that too?
Oh yeah, our professor is always like, I'm in our group is just like a bunch of women of color, and they're always like, what do you they're always using us as like guinea pigs to try out this new Zoom thing. And I think also because we happened to meet right before the class with this professor, and we're always like, oh, I bet she just wants us to test another activity.
I know. Yeah.
And like we've caught on to it. We're just like, nah, she just wants us to do something to make them feel better.
Yeah. Well, it happened to me in graduate school too. It's like at the height of the Gulf War at that time. And I was, as I said earlier, I was the only person of color in the classroom, right? And so the teacher or one student said something like, we always get news reports about what the Allied forces are doing. I wonder what the people from the Middle East feel about these things. And everyone looked at me. And I was like, A, I am not from the Middle East. And B, I do not represent every person of color. It's like, I don't know. It was just so natural for them to do that. And I had to call them out because that's what you get for lack of diversity. It's like you turn to the next person who doesn't look white, and then you expect that person to voice for everybody.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah. Hi, Alina. How are you doing in San Diego? That's my hometown.
Hi, Bonus. It's going okay.
It's San Diego. That's why they call it San Diego. Yes. Yeah. It's like 80 degrees the entire year. And then it goes down to 75, and everyone pulls out their turtlenecks and jackets because it's time to wear the winter outfits.
Very true.
How are you?
I'm doing good. Just trying to survive.
You work at the University of San Diego, is it?
UCSD, yeah.
UCSD, okay. Oh, that's my school. Okay, I thought you worked at USD. Well, there's a USD, right? And there's a UCSD. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You're in a better school then. That's nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you again for having this space to talk. It's good.
Thank you for coming. Yeah. Have you been to the Talking Trees?
Yes, I have.
Fantastic. Very good. That's where I used to walk. It's like this, sorry everybody, it's an art installation in
part of
on
the
the
spirit
campus.
collections.
And it's trees that have speakers in them, and they talk the entire day. It's like trees that speak to each other, like gibberish, right? I don't even understand them.
Yeah, you don't really hear their conversations.
Yeah, it's like, it's an, and then someone told me that's art, Brick. And I'm like, oh, sorry. I thought it was just like, whatever, right? Apparently it's very expensive. It's like $500,000 or something.
Yeah, it is. But can I ask you a question?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So now that we have been, I don't know how long you all have been social distancing or shelter in place in Washington. I think here in Cali, it's been like a little bit over a month. But what are you doing virtually to have students like build community, stay engaged and not feel isolated? I know that, like, shout out to the committee that is putting this AAPI Heritage Month together.
I know nothing will deter them. Yes.
Yeah. So I just wanted to ask, like, what are you doing virtually to reach out to students and like the community to still stay engaged? And
the mentorship program that I helped run, thank you for that question. The mentorship program that I helped run called PIPE, which is I think chapter 2, it's still going on virtually. So every Mondays we have study tables in Zoom from 4 to 6. We have what we call digital pizzas. It's like showing everybody that you're scarfing down a slice of pizza. And we try to laugh about our situation because we don't want to be too moping around. We have a quiet session which lasts for about 25 minutes because everyone wants to chat. But yeah, it's like we use it to, well, you've been to Pipe before, so it's the same thing. It's just that it's online. So there's a check-in moment. Everyone needs to sort of say something about how they're doing for about 2 minutes each, and then we have what we call a good thing that happened today was, and then they complete the sentence, and then there's a quiet study time, which is like 20 minutes or something, and then some of them, instead of studying, I look at them and I notice that some of them are like playing stationary football or something, doing some kicking with a ball, which is okay. And then because Polyday was canceled, some of them dance by themselves on video. The dance teachers, Nuki, he dances every now and then, just to perk it up a little bit. And then we stop at around 5 to eat, quote unquote, to eat. And so some people do pizzas and stuff. So yeah, I mean, in short, it's like we're still doing what we're doing. It's just that it's online. And then I know that the organizations are meeting through Zoom. Yeah, I got called once, but I couldn't make it on a meeting in which they were trying to figure out PISC graduation. I believe Taylor is helping out in planning that. And so we're still trying to devise a way to make it a little bit islander, right? We don't know yet how that will look like, but you could just imagine how upset people are that they're not gonna physically do a graduation march with other people, right? So we're trying to devise a creative way of replacing that for this year. Yeah, so it's hard. How about you? I mean, communities, I mean, it's like adjusting to a new way of doing community, right? A newer way of doing community, which is online. And clearly there are challenges to it, as you probably have experienced already, right? and then for a culture that that values a lot of affection, right, like that, it's hard to express that online, right? um, and then of course the big event every year, lots of students are very, very angry, you know and they don't know where to focus the anger because it's hard to blame a virus, right? um, you know but it's hard because it's like they've been looking forward to it, they've been rehearsing, how rehearsals can be intense, and then all of a sudden someone says, well, it's not going to happen, right? And so that's a big bummer. Some of them are planning to stay one more year just to do that, which is like, whoa, incredible. But yeah, activities like this, organizational meetings. I believe the Filipinos, the FASA, the Filipino night is going to be on Zoom at some point, which means they're going to record the entire event and then have like a YouTube movie about it or off it. So it's tough, you know. Um, and then there are some, there's one that's I'm being asked to speak in this, and maybe I should invite everybody the moment I get the little announcement. It's like mental health, mental well-being for Pacific Islanders, being hosted by, oh my goodness, AACR, something like that. I don't know. I forgot. So I'm gonna share that too. It's like a more Pacific Islander focused stuff on the pandemic and mental well-being. Yeah. How about you in San Diego? Can you share anything, or you have ideas on how to do these things? Because it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually started a new position recently, and I'm being onboarded virtually, so that's just something to navigate on its own. But like so far with the team and students I've been working with, same thing, like they're still progressing with programming through Zoom. They're trying to create new creative and innovative ways to still keep the student engagement going.
Yeah. That's nice.
So yeah, like doing like certain like gatherings like this, but then just having like breakout rooms to get more serious like conversations in smaller spaces where they're comfortable with like their mentors and mentees, and then bring it back to the whole collective to share whoever wants to. And then similar for like our graduating student staff, it's something that I don't know if you all want to like take and make it your own as well for your students, but we are trying to do similar to like Pass the Brush challenge that's going on in TikTok, but do a graduation edition.
I've seen that, yes.
Yeah. So that's just something that we talked about at our staff meeting, and trying to get our students, staff who are graduating, to honor them that way, and then have our own staff do that in celebration for all of our students who are in our programs to celebrate them. But yeah, I just feel like everyone is using Zoom, so I just wanted to reach out and see if there's any other like virtual programs people are like using to facilitate conversations, or like students are like liking more than other things.
Yeah, Zoom seems to be the monopoly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whoever owns Zoom is probably a very rich person right now. Wow.
Yeah.
I know. Do you remember AES 151, the big class that I teach? It's 200 students, right? We're all in Zoom. It's crazy. It's like I navigate through like 30 pages of cameras. So it's just, and a lot of students are just disappointed. But for the most part, we've been coasting along, getting used to it. It's just that we don't want to get too used to it, right?
Yeah. Another thing that our team is trying to do for our students is send them care packages while still practicing social distancing. So like one of the programs I'm really excited to be leading is a summer bridge program for first gen students. That, unfortunately, like the summer program got canceled, but I still want to send them care packages of like all the swag they would have received and like an agenda for our virtual summer program. And then, yeah, so I'm just thinking
That's
like,
nice.
if there's any other ideas, creative ideas that people have come up with, please share either in the chat or like send me a text or shout it out here.
That's nice.
But yeah,
Thank
bonus,
you.
just
Wow.
tell me your ways.
Huh?
Tell me your ways to keep
Your
students.
ways.
Please.
I still crack the same jokes and they still fall flat most of the time. So that in itself is entertaining, I think, you know. So yeah. Shout out to everyone else. Jerry, how are you? Good to see you.
Hi, Kuya. I'm good. Thank you. Nice to see you.
Kuya, oh my gosh. Yes, good to see
I'm
you.
that old.
Sione, I haven't seen you. Where are you at, Sione?
Hi, bonus. I'm back home right now, in Bellevue. But yeah, I live in Arizona. I'm in grad school right now.
Hey, shout out to Arizona. I live in Arizona too.
I know.
Which graduate program are you at in Arizona?
I'm in the PhD sociology program at University of Arizona.
In Phoenix,
It's in Tucson.
Tucson. Okay. Oh wow.
Here because of you and professors like you from UW.
And so you're completing your first year.
Yep.
Oh,
yes, I have my final paper. I have one more week left. Then I'll be done.
Fantastic. You know what? Have you heard the saying that after the first year of graduate school, you should be coasting?
I hope so.
Yeah, because first year is the most difficult of all graduate school. It's like
it is.
Because books get thrown at you. You're supposed to read them in 2 days and stuff like that. And so once you get over that hurdle, things should be downhill, better.
Well, I hope a lot of what you said about the socialization, that's been really hard this first year. So I hope I've learned some skills and it's a little bit easier from here on out.
Yeah, you have to have a lot of patience because, a lot of people think that it takes a long time, and it does take a long time in a way, but time flies.
It does, yeah. This year went by really fast.
Yeah, because I remember on my very first day of school, and this is a long time ago, I remember on the very first day of graduate school, the chair of the program said, "You guys think this is a long time to be in school? Watch. At the turn of a wink of an eye, it's like you're going to be graduating." And true enough, it's like, we're graduating, like that. And so, yeah, you have to be patient and sort of like persevering, because there's going to be a lot of barriers. How about you, Latu? I haven't heard from you. I know I called you out. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I think I saw you at Fred Meyer's the other day, and you didn't even say hi to me.
I haven't been at Fred Meyer's in like a year or so.
Oh, okay. So that wasn't you, no wonder. Sorry.
Maybe my twin that my parents didn't tell me about.
Maybe, yes. How are you? You're good?
I'm doing good. I'm working from home, currently working for
all of us are working from home.
But yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for these because I didn't know these were free. I saw Edwina and Kiana post Edwina and Donna post these, like the flyers on Instagram, and I didn't know these were free, so I'm really thankful these are free.
Why? Are there sites you have to pay for?
Yeah, well, honestly, I don't know, but I don't know. I didn't know.
Thank you. Well, thank you for coming. That's the power of social media. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then Aso, how are you?
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm doing good.
Very nice.
Yes. Sorry, I do have a question though.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't sure when I can pop in.
So like,
I'm dead. So as being like a professor, like, is it hard for you to do like the online Zoom class and stuff?
Oh yeah, on the very first time, the first 2 weeks, I was failing every day. I was like, I'm not a tech person necessarily, and B, it's like this is not how the class was planned. And then C, I had to contend with students who were like, this is not the class I registered for. You know, is it all online, right? And it's like, it's your fault, you know, like that. And so, yeah, but most of the students have been very understanding. I mean, there are so many things that I do in the classroom that I cannot do online. A lot of games that we play, a lot of exercises, a lot of like, we do theater of the oppressed, you know, things like that. We can't do that online. You know, I used to have like this game in which we play a game that teaches them about the power of homophobia. And I can't do that online because that exercise entails hugging each other in public. And so whenever I do that, I make that as an illustration to the students about the horrible power of being homophobic, right? And the ways in which they can experience those who are being targets of homophobia. And so I cannot do that because A, touching is not allowed, right? And B, we're all online, you know. So yeah, so it's a lot of adjustment.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, how are you? Do you have classes that are online? Yeah.
So as for now, I live in Arizona. So I'm here with my family. So I recently just got accepted in GCU, Grand Canyon University. So I will start in fall. So I won't start until like August.
Oh, okay.
So
hopefully it's going to be hybrid by that time, which means
hopefully,
half online and then half person to person.
So hopefully, because I'm trying to plan to stay on campus, and yeah, I'm just trying to go live on campus and live the life. So
yeah, of course, that's college. You know, you got to get out of your house and stuff. You know, and so yeah, it's gonna be a challenge. Hopefully, I always ask my students to have a fantasy moment in which they tell each other or themselves what's the first thing they will do once the lockdown is lifted.
Yeah.
Or guesstimate when it's gonna be over. It gives them something to look forward to. So I think
so yeah.
So my guess is like January 15.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm just happy that I'm still working, so I can still get out the house.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't for my job, I would stay.
Wait, are you a first responder? You have to get out of the house?
As for now, I'm working in a hospital. And
oh, you are a first responder?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So as for now, I'm like moving all over the place. I'm working on the floor. I work at the front desk, work in the kitchen. So I don't know where I want to work at as for now, but other than that, yeah. So
cool. Well, stay safe.
Thank you.
And healthy. How about you, Marissa? How are you, Brianna, Anmol, Rachel, Saini, Tutui? Yes. Oh, you changed rooms. Oh, because your mom was, yeah. Thank you. Very nice.
Well, Uncle Bonus, if I can just chime in, I know.
Deborah.
Oh, this is Edwina. Sorry.
No. There's a. Oh, I thought Deborah wanted to say. Sorry. Go ahead. Yes.
Deborah, did you want to say anything?
Oh no, I'm so sorry. I'm just joining. Hello, everybody again.
Hello.
Hello. Just in the interest of time, and we're just super grateful just that you spent, we basically got to have our own private Q&A session with Uncle Bonus today.
Thank you.
So, I do, if there are any other questions that are out there, I just want to make sure there's any other questions that folks wanted to ask for Dr. Bonus today. Are we good?
Edwina, did you notice anything in chat that was a question?
No questions came up, and I think most folks who did have questions.
Oh, they snap. Yes. Snap.
A lot of reactions. We got a lot of reactions to like things that you're saying, snaps and comments to other folks, and so.
Oh, and there's a contest. You can win a raffle prize.
Oh yes. So, in closing, first and foremost, Dr. Rick Bonus, we want to say thank you on behalf of the collective.
You're welcome.
Just for sharing your knowledge, your narratives, and your advice for our community. And so in transition, we do have some announcements. As you may have seen from Auntie Jerry in the chat box, if you were here, we would love your feedback first and foremost. at bit.ly/PI workshop eval. And so there is going to be a giveaway. So we are going to be drawing names for students to submit a survey at the end of this month. And those names will be announced after our last program for this month. Also wanted to share our next upcoming events. If you haven't yet, go to our other bit.ly link, which is bit.ly/Pacifica Capital HM 2020. And I know we'll probably post it in the chat feature, but tomorrow we have a really cool, I think it's an art exhibition by, many of you know, Tokovalu. And so he is a local Seattle artist. And I also know that he's been a part of the UW family. Many of you know him from the community.
And he did the cover art for the book.
Yeah, and the artist who designed the cover of, Looking for the Ocean in Your School. And so tomorrow, the Seattle Residency Project is putting up the information right now. And we'll post it in the chat box. And so the name of that program is Please Stay Home, which is an online art exhibition, Artist Talk with Tokovalu, in which hosts share on his most recent work under Vaha Api. And so that's from 12 to 1:30 tomorrow, Pacific Standard Time. So please come through. And if you are someone who would really, if you're someone who are just like, so lucky, how you just heard how these are like $3.99. If you're someone who really wants to host like a conversation, it doesn't always have to be dialogue. It could be a cooking demo. If you want to give us tips, if you have people who like to work out and want to inspire our community, we're still taking proposals. Just reach out to any of us. We have a link for you to submit that workshop. And then on Monday, I actually want to give this over to Saini because she's going to be leading that combo. If you want to talk about your next program this coming Monday.
Hello, everyone. My name is Saini. And me, Shalom, and Brenda, we will be leading a workshop on marginalizing Pacific Islanders and Asian Americans in the community. So come through if you want to learn more about that. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Saini. Dr. Bonus, is there anything else you wanted to share before we close out today's session?
I want to say thank you to all of you who organized this, Edwina, Nestor, everybody else, Donna, Deborah, thank you. And thank you all for coming. And Lupe, thank you for helping organize this as well. Nice to see all of you healthy and strong and positive in the midst of a horrible pandemic. So that's great. And nice to see new people too. Nice to know new people. Thank you. And yeah, let's keep on talking and building community. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you again, Dr. Bonus. Don't exit out yet because we want to take a family photo. It's a tradition that we started online. So I want to invite our folks who may not be showing their beautiful faces now. If you want to join in for the family photo, I'm going to just call out names. Yep, Saini, Joe, Bree, Marissa, Komisi, Emily, if you want to join the family photo, I'll give you a couple seconds. Everyone get your angles. Yep, practice those angles. Okay.
Oh, thank you, Alina. Thank you. That's nice. You have signage. Wow.
Okay, is everyone ready? Get your pose in.
Yeah.
Komisi, it's so good to see you here on time. So proud of you.
Thank you, Kukui, for helping organize.
All right, everyone, smile. All right, 1, 2, and 3. Hold on. All right, one more. Stay still. 1, 2, and 3. Yay! All right, y'all. Take care, family.
Thank you, Kukui.
Thank you. We'll see you Monday. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
It's on lunch.
Fill out the eval form.
Yes, don't forget eval.
We'll have more workshops next week.
Whoop, whoop.